Well, Luke and Jimmy are here ready to bring you another podcast because trying to get rid of us is like trying to get rid of a gnat on a fly's behind or something like that.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. I hope everybody got my opening joke. I know it wasn't good, but, I got to work in when your head coach says that he threw him off like a gnat on a fly's ass. And I was thinking, how small a gnat was it? Is all I could think. Surely y'all know what I'm talking about. But Jimmy, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. I don't know if I said that before, but I'll say it now. Jimmy, want to talk a little bit about Milton versus Milroe, meaning Joe Milton, Jalen Milroe. I have an exclusive, only Locked On Bama has this photograph of Jalen Milroe and Joe Milton together. Yeah, for those who don't know, that's the Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man meme. Because I was thinking about this today. I'm in Miami, and so I'm thinking of random things. And I thought about how Joe Milton and Jalen Milroe kind of seem like the same dude. They both have overthrown some guys on occasion and made some errant passes. They both have shown incredible running ability at times. They both have shown very nice passing ability at times. They both have the initials JM. They both have 4 interceptions on the year. The yardage, now Milroe has a lot more with one less game, 1397 to 1264 for Milton. But the sacks is where the TDs is 11 for Milroe, 10 for Milton. I would have thought Milroe had more. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I would have felt like he had more. Here's where the sacks come into play. 26 sacks for Milroe.
I think it's 30. Is it 26?
20. That's what, according to the SEC stat sheet. And then
that's probably right. I know Alabama's given up 31 sacks. Maybe 5 of those are Buckner and Simpson.
They are. And then 8 sacks. He's only been sacked 8 times, Joe Milton.
Yeah, sacks are a big thing, and I'm not sure how much of that you put on Milroe. I mean, obviously a few, more than 8, for sure. In terms of how many you sort of blame. This is the way I look at it, and I'm not I don't want to criticize Joe Milton and prop up Jalen Milroe this particular week because I think that's really bad juju. I mean, all I'm doing is setting up Alabama for failure. If I'm like, oh, Milton's terrible and Milroe's great, and you say that all week, and then we all know what would happen in the game. But I will say this, someone else is using this line too. I thought I came up with it, and now I notice other people using it. I'm not sure if I started it or if it's just obvious, but I think Joe Milton is what a lot of Alabama fans believe Jalen Milroe is. But actually, that's Joe Milton. That's not Milroe. Milroe has completed a better percentage of passes for more yards and less games, more touchdowns, more accurate, a much higher QBR than Milton. Jalen Milroe has outperformed Joe Milton to date. And the biggest fact of all being that Jalen Milroe is in simply year 3 of his career, and Joe Milton is in year 6. And Milroe has just been a better player this season. He just has, by any statistical measure. And people can say, oh, well, he's got a better cast than Milton. Well, look what Hendon Hooker did with Tennessee's cast a year ago, and parlaying that into an NFL draft choice and all the accolades that Hendon Hooker got a year ago. I don't think that's a fair thing to say at all. But my point is, I get the comparison. I do think they are similar in many ways, but I also think to this point, and we'll see what happens going forward, but to this point, Jalen Milroe has been a better player than Joe Milton, which is a surprise to me, frankly, because if you'd asked me in August who would have the better season, Milton or Milroe, I'd have told you Milton. but it's
Well,
been
most of the
Milroe.
world would have said that.
Yeah, but it's been Milroe.
By the way, I just figured this out. For those who aren't watching, I am wearing a very brand new golf polo from Wicker Point, which is the new golf course that opened on Lake Martin. And Jimmy is wearing a tie and and nothing else. No, a tie and a collared shirt. This is the dressiest we've ever been for this podcast.
This should be like we should have made up something that like this is our 300th show or whatever we would have made up. But no,
we just aren't fired yet.
Luke's traveling in a very nice area of the country, and I'm coming back from a funeral. So here we are.
Yeah, sort of feels wrong to laugh when you say that.
I know. I shouldn't. Funeral.
But anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Is two kind of maligned yet sort of beloved quarterbacks. I mean, I think both of them are so full of potential, but it's all mostly untapped. It's going to be interesting to see which one comes out on top. What scares me to death is that Tennessee sacks the quarterback a lot, and we give up a ton of sacks. We're worst in the country in sacks. I mean,
it's the number one thing to fear. It's the number one thing to fear Saturday. If you're an Alabama fan, that's it. If you want to lose some sleep, if you want to stress, if you want to bite your nails down to the nubs or whatever, it's over that. They're very good at rushing the passer. Alabama's very bad at protecting the passer, and those twain shall meet.
Yeah, and so maybe, if Alabama really wants to get better at protecting the passer, one place they could go is LinkedIn Jobs. I think they could go to LinkedIn Jobs and find a new pass protection, because these days every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs is just awesome. I'm telling you, go check them out. All you got to do is go to LinkedIn Jobs, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are, yes, hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd ultimately like to hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and helps you find them faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may, and I bet they do, apply. So, Jimmy, I want to talk a little recruiting now. Alabama got a commitment from a linebacker the other day, and we didn't talk about it yesterday. We probably should have. But, right after a game, when you get a commitment on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then you have a game, and there's a lot of stuff that happened in the game, it's hard to really
Gets lost, especially with it being a 25 and not a 24.
So it's Miles Johnson from TR Miller. I don't really know much about this cat. I know that a lot of people are impressed with him. I also know he's not incredibly highly thought of in terms of the services just yet. He may be eventually, but a commitment is a commitment. And I want to talk about another 2025 guy that I know Alabama was pursuing that committed elsewhere here in just a second.
Yeah, Miles. I'm a huge Miles Johnson fan, and let me tell you, if you're a fan of recruiting rankings, this won't be your favorite guy because I don't think he's going to be ranked super high, and he's probably going to fall before meteorically rising next fall. But what's happened is Miles Johnson came to camp at Alabama the summer prior to his junior year, and keep in mind how much you have to show Alabama coaches to become a take at camp the summer before your junior season. And he did. He knocked their socks off, and they're like, we want you on this football team. And he got a takeable offer based on his performance at Alabama's camp this summer. And then he promptly went out, I believe, in the first game of his junior season at TR Miller and tore his ACL. So he's missing his entire junior season. Alabama is not rescinding their offer in any way. They're still very excited to get him. But Miles Johnson, there won't be junior tape of him, and he won't be ready to go until next summer. So you can expect Miles Johnson not really to be ranked or to be ranked very high, because those rankings are next summer, rankings will be based on junior tape and what you did in spring camps. Miles Johnson will have no junior tape, and he ain't gonna be able to participate in spring camps. So he won't be ranked very high. It doesn't matter. Just remember what he was prior to then. And I can tell you, when I saw Miles for the first time as a ninth grader, I believe it's ninth grade, he was really primarily a running back. And I was so impressed by him as a running back. I thought, he is a strong Alabama maybe. And that was as a running back. It wasn't too long after that he was playing linebacker, and I saw some linebacker tape, and that's when I was like totally knocked out. Like, oh man, I thought he was pretty good running back. He's much better on defense. I tell you who there's a little Mark Barron in him. There's a little Dylan Moses in him. There is some Deontay Lawson in him, in the sense that Miles is so athletic for the position, Luke. He's a guy who's going to stuff the run in the middle. He's going to rush the passer on third down, and he can drop into coverage and cover, large areas in pass defense. He's that athletic. So I'm very fired up about Miles Johnson. But if you're a rankings groupie, you won't be, because his ranking until late, I think what's going to happen is he's going to be on the periphery of everything. And then he's going to play senior season, and the people in charge of the rankings are going to go, holy moly, look at this guy. And he could shoot up the rankings late, which is all that matters, is the rankings at the end, right?
Well, I mean, look, if we're going to be honest, the rankings really don't matter, but they do matter. You and I know they matter. A lot of people are going to say, oh, I know a bunch of 2-stars that became 5-star. Okay.
Right. They do and they don't.
Please. People need to understand that we've gotten so much better. It's just like we've gotten better at predicting the weather. Like, the weather is not always right, but
usually
it is much better to listen to James Spann than it is to look at the Farmer's Almanac. It just is. So,
we could do a whole show on recruiting rankings. What drives me crazy is now, I work in the recruiting rankings industry now, and the people that are extremists on both sides, they're the ones that have it wrong. And isn't that true in basically all walks of life? But it's the extreme. It's the rankings are stupid. They don't matter. Of course they matter, because the teams at the top of the recruiting rankings are the teams that are winning on Saturdays. Alabama, Ohio State, USC, Texas. These are the teams winning every week. But the ones that also drive me crazy are the ones that believe it's some sort of perfect science, and that it's so literal that literally the third best player will prove to be better than the fourth best player, who will prove to be better than the fifth best player. Those people are more wrong than anyone. They don't understand rankings at all. But if you're an extremist, anti or pro rankings, you're probably overdoing it. As usual, the truth is in the middle. The rankings are a guide. They are largely accurate, but you have to look at them in a macro sense and not a micro sense.
Yeah, and I'll say it again that I remember a Sports Illustrated college football preview from the late 80s. And I remember they said something about Notre Dame dropping in recruiting a little bit, and they said, but you know what? The definition of a great recruit is being recruited by Notre Dame. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. That's when I first started getting into recruiting. Jimmy, Jordan Crawford.
That was probably true, especially back then.
Jordan Crawford, a 2025 defensive lineman out of Parker. Teammates with Jeremiah Beeman. He is committed to Auburn. Now, why is this a big deal? First of all, they also have Naheem Alford. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's how I've been saying Naheem Alford.
Well, by the way, I watched them play Mountain Brook on the NFHS network, and that was a fantastic game. And Parker's got some dudes, man. They got some dudes. But, so a couple of things. First of all, how heavily recruited was Crawford by Alabama? Secondly, will this affect Beeman at all?
I think Crawford is a guy on Alabama's radar, but I would just call him that. I think he's on Alabama's radar. I mean, they're aware, they're interested. To my knowledge, he was not a super priority. Not yet. He could have positioned himself into being one eventually, and he still may. It's probably not over, just like Jeremiah Beeman's recruitment is not over. He is taking a long look at Auburn, a serious look at Auburn, and he may flip. He could. We're not saying at BOL, We're not saying, hey, he won't flip. Don't even worry about it. We're saying, yeah, that could happen. But as of this exact moment, we're not forecasting it. There's no forecast for him to flip, but that is something within the realm of possibility. And I imagine Jordan Crawford's commitment to Auburn is a factor because I'm sure they're tight. Now, Offord, the junior cornerback there, he is a major priority for Alabama. They're recruiting him as hard as they're recruiting anybody in the 2025 class. They love that kid, and he is he's very, very high on their 2025 wish list. Crawford less so, but on the radar, and could have played his way into priority status.
What I worry about is this another Tamarian Parker or TJ Parker situation who has gone to Clemson. And I just saw ESPN. There was an article written about, halfway point accolades. And Parker was ranked just ahead of Caleb Downs in terms of the top 5 freshmen so far this year. And boy, I hate missing out on him and Peter Woods. I mean, I could just, lament about that.
One thing about Parker for people to take in mind, though, and by the way, I agree. And I liked Parker me and Luke both did. We raved about him as a prospect, so we were right about him. But let's remember, schematically, Alabama and Clemson are very different. Clemson plays a 4-3. Alabama plays a 3-4. Parker neatly fits into their even man front as a defensive end. At Alabama, we don't really have a spot like that. Where he would play at Alabama is either where big 310-pound Jaheim Otis plays, or where 250-pound fast as a deer Dallas Turner plays. He doesn't fit neatly into the Turner role or the Jaheim Otis role yet, and I think ultimately that's probably why he ended up choosing Clemson, just kind of a better fit for him schematically.
Well, and I'll also say this: you brought up Dallas Turner on that same ESPN article. They said Dallas Turner is the defensive Heisman winner for the year so far.
Wow,
that was very nice.
They must read my posts on BOL, where every time I write Dallas Turner,
they credited you.
They should have, because every time I write Dallas Turner, it's followed by comma SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Dallas SEC Defensive Player of the Year Turner.
I forgot 2 things to bring up in the first segment, and I want to bring them up now. First of all, I want to talk about how, I was watching. I don't know if you ever watch the Unofficial Coaches YouTube channel. It's a pretty good YouTube channel. It's funny. It's great, and they do a good job. And on that, they were going through the Alabama-Arkansas game again, and they said, we're just sort of tired of relying on busted coverages. And boy, I was like, that is sort of true. It feels like that's what we have sort of lucked into. Some deep passes. The pass to Kobe Prentice was definitely a busted coverage, 100%. Now, so a lot of the passes against A&M, with the glaring exception of Isaiah Bond on the first touchdown, those were just really nice plays by Milroe for the most part. But we are relying on a lot of busted coverages right now, and that scares me to death, especially not to get too far ahead of myself. If we get to Georgia, a defense that's going to be disciplined and they're not going to bust as many coverages. Right. So the second thing I wanted to say was kudos to the coaching staff for trusting Jalen Milroe late in the game against Arkansas. In the wrap up, you and I didn't really discuss this. The late pass over the middle to Knobloch, they trusted him to get that first down. And I'm hoping that that's something that really helps him grow a little bit more. Like I said, he's growing every single game. He might not be growing at the speed you want him to. I get that. But he is growing every single game. And, Jimmy, we're going to go ahead and tell everybody about PrizePicks now, because I'm watching Monday Night Football. It's a great time to talk about PrizePicks. But I did want to say one other thing, that as I'm watching this Monday Night Football game between the Chargers and the Cowboys, I'm just reminiscing about how much I love J.K. Scott, the punter for the Chargers. He's probably the only player in Alabama history that made me hope for a 3-and-out. I just loved it.
I put this story up on BOL too. James Burnip has a higher average this year than J.K. Scott did in any of his 4 years at Alabama, which is a mind-blowing stat. I mean, that's like, you've got to be kidding me, because I don't think people look at Burnip the same way they look at J.K. Scott. Well, Burnip is having a better season this year than J.K. Scott had in any of his 4 years at Alabama. That's just stunning.
JK just did it while looking like a 10th grader, though. It was so awesome.
Yeah, he's got that Home Alone 3 look.
Home Alone 4, home against
Yeah.
Ole Miss in 2015.
Yeah,
Okay.
then he punts little Joe Pesci right out of the house.
Yeah, he kicks a football right in their face. Okay. What is PrizePicks? PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of betting thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less than whatever number they put up there on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and watch the winnings just roll on in. Look, PrizePicks is the most fun I've had winning up to 25 times my money this football season. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. It is absolutely awesome. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to 100 smackers. Repeat offer. I'm telling you, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to repeat it. I just read the repeat offer. I tried to cover that. So terrible.
Hi, my name is Luke Robinson.
Hello, state your name. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Go check out PrizePicks. Download that app, y'all.
Free money.
God, that's so bad. I mean, I don't even know what's worse that I called myself out. I had to call myself out, though, because
Yeah. That makes it funnier.
no, it makes it like sort of honest. I'll tell you, speaking of calling yourself out, we're going to talk about Bama players in the NFL here for a minute. Did you see, and you may not have because you've been at a funeral all day, Devontae Smith, who dropped a key pass late in the loss for the Eagles against the Jets. He just flat dropped it. And I mean, in fact, I was watching the game. I was like, Devontae just dropped that. I mean, like that, we don't see that ever. He catches everything. He caught COVID before it was cool. Anyway, and so somebody asked him about it after the game, and they said, "What's the reason for?" He said, "What happened on that play?" And he said, "I dropped it. He said, "Well, what did you learn from it?" I didn't learn anything. I didn't catch the dang ball. And it was so honest. And I mean, that's what I just thought about saying that, because there'll be some place, well, the northern sun was coming in.
Right.
No, he was like, I just dropped it and I screwed up. And it was my fault.
Took responsibility for a bad play. But bad plays happen, and it kills me. I mean, we've got to understand as fans that bad plays happen, just like we all make errors at work. We all do. Usually small, some big, some small. No one's going to work and batting 1,000.
Yeah, that's true. But Devontae was until this, by the way. So Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts and Landon Dickerson, they lose to Quinnen Williams and the Jets and CJ Mosley. Weirdly, Quinnen Williams gets an interception in that game. So crazy. His first ever. CJ Mosley causes a fumble that Quinnen Williams' brother picks up. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. Small world.
So certainly that game happened. I went to the Miami game, as I talked about yesterday. I thought Bryce Young looked really good. I mean, look, in a loss.
It was his best game, wasn't it?
I think it was. And it was his best game. And Tua looked awesome. I'm telling you, I feel like Tua's playing the best quarterback play in the NFL right now.
If Carolina obviously is going to have a very high pick in the first round, obviously we're going to talk a ton about this in March and April, but what position does Carolina are they going to draft a lineman to help Bryce? Are they going to draft a playmaker? But it's a lineman, right?
Got to have an offensive. They got to start with offensive line. Bryce didn't have a ton of time in this game either.
So maybe Latham. I mean, Latham's going to go high. I don't know that he'll go as high as Penn State has a tackle, Notre Dame has a tackle, those guys might go before Latham, maybe, but Latham's going to be in that mix. I saw a fun mock today, Luke, that had the Houston Texans, who already have Christian Harris, Henry To'o, and Will Anderson in the front seven. This mock had Dallas Turner going to Houston.
Sweet.
Wouldn't that be funny? I would buy, if the Texans draft one more Alabama defender, I'm going to buy 2 Texans jerseys. 2.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that's why I wish the Texans had been able to get Bryce Young. So, but I'm glad Bryce went first. So, and then Jameson Williams, his first touchdown, and it was an awesome play. And it was so reminiscent. The catch itself wasn't the same, but a lot of things looked like the big touchdown he had against Georgia for the long play, like to start the second half. And he made a beautiful adjustment on the ball. He was just great. And it was so happy for him. You could tell how excited he was to get that touchdown. And they were playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, who were in their old throwback unis that just were gorgeous. I'm going to tell you,
creamsicles.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, back in the day, I didn't like their jerseys. I was like, why on earth would you do this? And now I can't get enough of them. I think they're awesome.
If it was a jersey, an NFL jersey worn in like the early 80s or mid 80s, I'm in, because that was my NFL childhood. And that's when I fell in love with the NFL. So whenever I see those 80s jerseys that are throwbacks for some teams like the Buccaneers and the creamsicles, or the Chargers with the lightning bolt, helmets, man, I love that stuff.
Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans continue to waste Derrick Henry. He almost has another 100-yard game. He does have a touchdown. Boy, I really
it's another team that's going to be picking high. They got to be done with Tannehill, right?
Oh, he was just awful. And I know he got hurt, but he was just awful. Brian Robinson had another touchdown.
Let's do an over-under on quarterbacks taken in the first round. There's going to be a collision, Luke, of quarterback-hungry teams ready for a quarterback in round one, and a ton of quarterbacks with round one juice. Caleb Williams and Drake May, to say the least, but I'm talking Penix, Quinn Ewers, Jaden Daniels. Every time I watch Jaden Daniels now, I'm like, he's obviously Lamar Jackson. He's Lamar, or he's so close to Lamar that he's a first-round pick to me. Penix, Bo Nix is probably a first-round pick, but I can see 6 or 7 in the first round next April. That's a big number.
I'm going to, speaking of screwing up, I've been saying on this podcast and everywhere that it's a down year for quarterbacks in the SEC, and it is. And I've been saying, because our best quarterback is Jaden Daniels, who's good, but he's not, Joe Burrow, he's not Tua, he's not Bryce. And I still don't think he's those guys. He's closer than I thought. He's closer than I thought.
He's always been good, but this year he's taken another step. He's a different player than he was good before. Now he's great. He's developed as a passer, picks his spots, sort of charismatic out there. I don't see why he's not a first-round pick, and frankly, I don't see why he's not top 3 in the Heisman, if not even number 1.
Jimmy, I want to tell everybody to go check out our subtext group. Please go just go check it out. Okay. Join subtext.com/LockedOnBama. Join subtext.com/LockedOnBama. Please go check it out. We would appreciate that a ton. And Jimmy, until next time, roll tide.
Roll tide.